meeting. First item on the agenda is approval of the October 18th meeting minutes. A motion to approve.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, motion to approve. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, minutes accepted. On to the new business. So discussion and direction of West Edge Apartment. And we have a couple of guests with us tonight.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm going to share a presentation that they've asked to have available. Just as a follow-up from the last meeting, there's been a lot of discussion on this item. You'll remember 2 weeks ago, PRC requested a public dedication of 10,000 square feet for a public park as part of the development. The development team is here this evening to kind of explain their proposed development and share why they are opposed to that concept and would prefer to pay fees in lieu. With that, Brett, I will turn it over to you and your team.
Hey, okay, thanks, Matt. I trust everybody can hear me. Matt, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Brett.
Okay, thank you. So with me tonight, I have Ken Psyche, our landscape architect. I felt it was important to have my attorney here, Doug Buck, and then my son, Gus Newcomb, who's a millennial. Let me start by just saying that, the meeting that was held last week, I found out about the meeting on, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I got an email from Abby. So for some reason, I was not either invited to the meeting or the invite was lost, which happens. But I was surprised that the Parks Commission made a motion without me being at the meeting to speak on our behalf. So I thought it was important that I quickly meet with Matt and the mayor, which we met last week and had a nice discussion. And then Matt was kind enough to put me on the agenda for tonight's meeting. So my intent is to speak, about our project and about a path forward where we can get the council to approve this project tomorrow. So looking forward to an open dialogue. But let me start with kind of the basics. I want everybody to truly understand the location of our site and what our vision is for this project. So the screen that you're looking at shows the location of 4 acres that I purchased a year ago last summer. And I think it's a fantastic site. It's right on the southern border of Middleton and, with Madison. It's really probably one of the last infill sites available. To my south is the Old Sauk Trails Business Park. And to my north is the Greenway Station Retail. My vision for this development is to do something that has not really been done in the suburbs. And I know this because we're a construction company and we also do development. But if you look at this aerial, one thing that you'll see quickly is that this is a typical suburban development area, which is indicative of a lot of parking. So it's just a sea of asphalt, which is what happens in the suburbs because there's land available. And it's the cheapest way to park is just to park on the surface. That's what you get with suburban. So it's easy for developers and at a low cost to do this. My personal vision is to not do that. I've always been fascinated by the urban concept. And what the urban concept is limited parking. It's high dense development. And, it's all the great things that we all love and the city loves the concept. So, I kind of want to share with you kind of the area that we're at and kind of what my vision is for this infill site. Next slide, please, Matt. So this is the concept, and we've worked closely with Ken Psyche on this, but you'll see quickly that the site has very limited surface parking. And, you know, that's not easy to achieve because what it forces the developer to do is put the parking somewhere. And in this case, the parking is below both apartment buildings and below the courtyard. So all that green space around the pool is over parking. So Matt, if you go to the next slide, please. This is the underground parking. So it's a little hard to see in this slide, but there's a dotted line that shows the outline of the apartments above. But on the left side of the underground parking is the apartment that was on the left. And on the right side is the C-shaped apartment that was the apartment on the right. And then the box square that you see in the middle of the parking, that's the pool. So below the development in the courtyard, we have 176 parking stalls hidden from view. This is extremely expensive to do. And let me just say to you this, each stall costs about $22,000 to build versus parking on the surface costs about $3,000 to build. So for a developer to have this vision costs money and take some, you know, some wherewithal to do this. But this is the vision that we have, our family has for developing this particular parcel. And we're not asking for city assistance at all to make this happen, unlike other apartment developments in the area. And I can tell you this, that the city staff loves the concept. They love the high density. They love the lack of surface parking. They love the green space that's available and everything that we've kind of created here. Next, Matt. So this is the corner view of the apartment. And you can see it's got a cool vibe, which we're going after. The name of the building is the West Edge. It is totally focused on branding this to millennials. The millennials are going to want to live here. It's going to be edgy and it's going to be a cool place. It really is going to be very cool. But you can see that we are showing moving the building up to the street corners. We're anchoring 2 streets that we're on. And we have grass between the street curb up to the building. And it's just very welcoming. The corner piece that you see there, the triangular piece, points right at Starbucks, which was actually by design. It's not just something we like to say. When we were talking to our architects, we said, listen, we know that it's all about coffee. If you drive by Starbucks at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a line at the drive-thru. People love it. So we're pointing right at that retail area and then past that right at Capitol Brewery. Next slide, please. So I just want to quickly show some of our interior images, and it's important. I know we're not talking about interiors with the Parks Commission, but I want the Parks Commission to understand that the users of this particular apartment are millennials. We've had market research done by a company in Chicago that specializes in market research for apartments. The market research has come back to us and said, there will be no children in this apartment, none. This will be filled with millennials. And my son's on the call. He's 23 years old. He just graduated from Colorado. He lives in the Deco. And he said he's never seen a child at the Deco. That's another apartment that is, you know, geared towards millennials. But next slide, please, Matt. So it's going to be kind of an edgy brand. We're kind of celebrating electric guitar. You know, it's not going to be totally rock and roll, but it's going to be kind of that feel, but it's super high quality finishes. It definitely has a style to it. And we're really excited because, you know, there's not a lot of apartments that really have a true brand about them, but this will be one that does, and it's going to rival any apartment on the west side and probably most of the apartments downtown Madison. Next, please. This is the rooftop that looks that you can rent out the rooftop deck, and this looks right over at Starbucks. And a gathering area that is just off of that rooftop unit. So back to the site plan. So along with the interior brand and the images, I just want to share with you some of the exterior things that are going on. So we have a lot of park-like amenities, and those include the 2,000 square foot pool. We'll have grilling stations around the pool. We have a dog park that you can see just kind of to the south, if you will, kind of south, bottom portion right there is a dog park. We're gonna have fire pits, a lot of walkable connections, and just a lot of grass. And the grass is important because it's gonna get people out, and it's gonna bring people together, and that's where they can meet and do whatever. And millennials, millennials are all about the experience. Millennials want to cross-country ski. They want to go to Starbucks. They want to go to the Capitol Brewery. They want to mountain bike. They're active, and this outside concept is totally by design. It's we're not filled with parking lots. We've created nice walkable areas here, and we've kind of really filled the site to the best that we can, and still incorporating things like stormwater management, which you can kind of see around the site. But it's a tough task to be able to pull all this stuff together on one 4-acre parcel. Next, please. So the area that we would call park or gathering space really is about 1/3 of an acre. And I know at the last meeting, the Parks Commission made a recommendation that I dedicate 10,000 square feet of land. I just don't have 10,000 square feet of land to dedicate. We're using every inch of land for either building or amenities or stormwater management. But I can tell you this, that we have over 10,000 square feet. I've got 1/3 of an acre really dedicated to park or gathering space, which consists of that pool area and then that dog park area. But I kind of wanted to speak a little bit to, I talked a little bit about my project, but I want to speak to the general area that we're building in and offer up my opinion on why I feel that a public park on this site is really the wrong concept. Next slide, please. So this is the quadrant of the city of Middleton that the mayor would like to see a public park. The line on the south is the Middleton-Madison boundary. The line on the right is the Belt Line. The line on the left, the yellow line on the left, is Pleasant View. And then Highway 14 is the line on top. So this general quadrant of the city is, I guess, relatively void of a park. I mean, the next topic on the agenda is a topic of buying park equipment in the Greenway Station area, which makes sense. I mean, that's central to this area. So you're going to have a public park there. But, basically this quadrant of Middleton consists of commerce. I mean, it's businesses that really occupy this quadrant, aside from a few residential areas. So I can show those to you next. That location is the west edge. That's the apartment that I will be developing. We are right on the southern border of the Middleton boundary. Next slide. Within this quadrant, we have Market West and the Foundry. Now, it's important that the park understand this. Both of those developments received city financing. The city gave those projects money. I'm not asking for any money from the city. But even after Market West and the Foundry received city money, they did not dedicate land to the city. Instead, they took the option of paying the fee to the city, which by ordinance, so by law, developers have the option. They can dedicate land, or they can pay a fee. And both Market West and the Foundry decided to pay the fee. Next slide. The only two other residential areas in this entire quadrant are two complexes. One is the La Silve and the other is Deer Creek. And if we zoom in on those two complexes, next slide. They look like this. So we'll start with the one to the right. So Deer Creek. If you really look at Deer Creek, it's a complex of many apartments, and they have a lot of green area around, in their courtyards and so forth, but they do not have a pool. They don't show that they have really any outside park amenities for their renters. And, they, upon themselves, if they feel that there's a demand for a park because their tenants may require it, they have room to put their own park in. And the La Silve, the one to the left, is right across the street from the golf course. So it'd be my argument that if the La Silve needed a park and they didn't have room for it, they could talk with the city about doing something on city land, which is the golf course right across the street. So to me, based on these maps, it does not make sense at all for me to put in dedicate land for a public park that in essence is going to support other developments that could have put a park in, and some of them even receive city money and they refuse to put a park in. But I'm willing to make an offer to the Parks Commission. And that's this. I would like the Parks Commission to retract their recommendation that they made last Monday when I was not available to speak on my behalf. Retract the recommendation that the council approve my project if I dedicate 10,000 square feet of land. Retract that recommendation because I don't have 10,000 square feet of land to dedicate. In its place, make a recommendation that the developer, me, will reserve land to put in a play area in the future should my tenants demand that we have one. And what that means is my tenants to start out with will be millennials. They will not require a play area. But if the millennials start breeding and they have kids and the demand changes, I will agree to put a park in on my cost at that area that's kind of indicated right there in that starred area. So I'd like for that to be the recommendation that we move forward with tonight. Last slide, please. And I want to be clear that I'm a citizen of Middleton. My kids have gone to high school here. I've lived here. We develop projects here. We build here. And we have personally, with our own money, supported the Friends of Pheasant Branch. I've donated probably $20,000 to them. This $10,000 check was made right after the great floods when everybody was in need of support. And I feel that on this particular project, I feel a little bit threatened because I feel like the Parks Commission has said to the council, approve the project if Brett dedicates land. Well, by ordinance, I get the option. I can dedicate land or I can pay a parks fee. And I would like to pay the parks fee and then allow city staff, and by the way, my park fee is going to be $500,000 of real money. I mean, that's money my family has made. So we're paying $500,000 to the city instead of dedicating land. With that money, the city and Abby and Matt, they can identify on their own land that they can buy and that they can develop a park. And talking with Matt and Abby, they have already identified a handful of options that they can speak to, but I know about them and I think they're great options. And they're much better options than my particular parcel, which really, in my mind, does not make sense. But anyway, so I mentioned kind of the outcome that I'd like to see moving forward, and that is to retract last week's recommendation to instill a new recommendation, which is to approve my project, and that condition upon if the demand changes, Brett will reserve an area and he'll put a park in the future. I'm available for questions, and Ken Psyche can speak if you have questions for Ken as well.
Okay, we'll open up the floor for discussion. Thank you very much, Brett, for joining in and filling us in on some of the details of your project. I think that some of these details were either we were missing, a couple things were mentioned last week that I think you really cleared up today in your presentation. So I do appreciate you taking time this evening to join us. So just in general, what are people's thoughts?
Well, I'm reacting, this is Jim. I'm feeling that this information clears up some of the questions that were nagging me a little bit. And I think the looking at the population of the area, as far as the other apartments are concerned, and then Brett, your work here, it does make me wonder whether that's an appropriate location. I'm speaking to Brett's development for a top lot, a small park. I'm not convinced that that should be the case. But I'm anxious to hear what other folks might be saying.
Matt, Brett mentioned that you had some locations that you had thought about that would make good places for parks that could be purchased with the $500,000 that he was going to contribute. Is that true? And where are those?
Abby and I have plans to meet with Artis, who owns a good majority of the land that surrounds this area. The reality is that we're going to continue to see residential development in this area. A lot of that asphalt over the next 5 to 15 years is likely to convert into more residential housing. And my take on this is whether there's kids or not, millennials, seniors, whatever it is, city needs to provide a park over there. And as I said 2 weeks ago, I don't want to see a playground required at each residential development. We need to provide a park with amenities that would serve all ages. So I'll stay with that.
Also, could you clarify? I thought that we were told once that it was up to the city to determine whether the park fee or parkland dedication was what was going to take place.
My understanding is that the ordinance allows the city to determine what it wants. I think there'll be attorneys involved in discussing the merits of both. I think the reality is that the city has often went with the softer approach of the negotiation or discussion between the city and developer determining whether it's a dedication or fee in lieu, or what is often the case, a combo of both.
I guess I look at this lot and it does not lend itself to a good park site. I fully recognize that. And I agree, Matt, that having a little tot lot for every residential area, it doesn't make much sense. But at the same time, we've gotten pressure already to try to find park space over here. And I just want to kind of be certain where we would end up with some park space that would work out before we would move forward with this.
David, to answer that, my hope is that Artis sees the value in identifying a public park and is willing to work with us on acquisition, negotiation, whatever you want to call it, in terms of determining. And I'm not expecting that we're going to get 3 acres, but I think all of the redevelopment will benefit from having some public park space. And I hope that everyone sees it as such. I know that's utopian and overly optimistic, but we'll see.
It's also going to be in demand for people who live over there. I mean, you mentioned the golf courses over there, but the golf course is the golf course. And, you know, if there's a lot of things that have happened with the golf course and the bike path or the bike trail over there that, you know, that's going to be dead, you know, for golfers and for bikers over at this point. And, you know, ultimately we do need something over there if this area is going to continue to grow. And, you know, I know this conversation, we had this 2 weeks ago, it was mentioned that, you know, having a playground is one thing, but you also have to have a park that will grow with the community, you know, grow with the people who live there. And a playground is great for people who are for little children up until they're about the age of 8 or 9. And then their park demands change. You know, and more open space is needed to play the sports that they're playing and just to kind of run around a little bit. And, you know, I think moving forward, it would be wonderful if we could find a plot of land in this area. But, you know, I think we also mentioned that what's the cost going to be, because we are a landlocked community and real estate right now is very expensive. And, you know, is a current owner of a parcel of land going to be willing to sell to the city? You know, I think the city has to do a really good job of pushing the benefits to the current owners of the land to sell it to the city to make a park, because they can make a lot of money if they sell it for private development. And that's the kind of concern I have right now, is like, where are we going to, you know, are they going to work with the city to create a park, or are they going to go for the top dollar of private developers coming in?
You know, this is Doug Buck. If I can just add quickly, I'm Brett's attorney. I did talk to the city's attorney, Matt Fleming, today. And, you know, one of the things I want to point out is that you all did adopt a comprehensive open space plan. And, you know, one of the things that it talks about is having a thought out regional solution. And, you know, the point of this plan is that it's really not appropriate for you to randomly pick a parcel and say, here's where the park would go for this region, and make that one developer do it. So in fact, if you look at your plan that you adopted, it says that you could adopt a requirement that would be of dedicating land instead of paying fees, but it has to be applied even-handedly to all developers. So if you haven't done that, you should think about, it's not appropriate to just randomly pick Brett's development and say, this is where the park's going to go, after you've let 2 people build without parks and paying a fee, and then maybe you're going to let the next person do that. So it's just something for you to keep in mind.
I think part of it is that this is the development in front of us right now, you know, and we can't go back in time to look at the past developments that the city turned a blind eye towards or something. We have to look at what's in front of us now and what is going to come into us into the future. So that's why at our last meeting, I believe, you know, not knowing how this area is going to look in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we went ahead with a recommendation to put a park just so we could get something at least in that area at the time for the moment now. You know, and if this area is going to be developed into the future, maybe the city works with the current landowners to try to find something. But, you know, that's why we made the recommendation that we did, because we're going to need, you know, the need is going to be there. And I see the mayor has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate what you know, all of you have said. I have had a great discussion with Matt and especially with Abby, and I think they are making very serious effort to find a park site, which is very encouraging. And that didn't happen in the past. I wish it had, but we can go back to the past. So there are, you know, Matt already mentioned artists, but there are 2 other sites they're looking at as well. So I think I like what Brett has proposed. And, you know, if there's a need, then after a certain time, he will build some playground facility there. But I agree with you that we do need a park. And I'm also glad that you have a next two items that will be the start of at least some playground and park there. So that will be on Market Street. At least something is happening in this area. So I think I'm encouraged that there will be approval of I would imagine that you will approve that next item, and that what city staff is doing, and that we are all aware that for long time, this quadrant was just didn't have anything. So I think I'm okay with with what Brett is proposing. So and what you guys have said, that we do need a park and more than the small area here. So okay, that's where I stand. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, any other thoughts?
So for me, what I'm feeling is that the idea of a top lot here is it's hard to suggest what value that adds to the citizens of that vicinity. But by taking the $500,000 and putting that in the bank, by having that $500,000 for park development, if, as Matt's suggesting, there are another development or two that are going to occur, and that there may be land available, I'm of the opinion that we should go ahead and take the fee, have the fee be available for park development in that area when additional fees come through, and hopefully some lands can be negotiated in for a larger park, using the monies, including Brett's monies, for that park. And that's how I feel about it.
And 2 weeks ago, we made a recommendation, and the city council and planning commission and whomever can take our opinion into consideration, and they can disregard it, or they can disregard it. And I know we have made opinion or given recommendations in the past, and it has been the city council has not followed up on followed our recommendations. So just because, and we do have this out there, but I don't know if we want to change it or
Well, Nick, if I could speak to that. So the recommendation was made at a meeting that I was not invited to. I may have been invited, but I didn't get the invite, and I was not there to offer information that probably could have helped persuade the votes otherwise. So I would like for that to be retracted and for a new recommendation to be made at tonight's meeting, where the recommendation of the council tonight says to approve the development, and should the demand arise, the developer will put a private park in, or a private area at some point in the future. That would be the new recommendation.
I don't believe we can do that tonight,
Right.
the way the agenda reads.
Why
And
not?
that opens up a whole different set of issues as far as private park. To keep it simple, I guess, are you ready to, I'm going to make a motion, and my motion is going to be to withdraw the recommendation for land in lieu of fees, and to reverse that decision and make a motion that the council accepts our suggestion of fees in lieu of. I'll make a motion to that effect.
I don't believe we can make that motion tonight.
We can't.
That would be a reconsideration of a prior decision made at
Okay,
the meeting.
Okay.
This is not posted as such.
I see. Okay.
So Nick,
Yes,
I have a question about the fees in lieu a while back.
Can we hold on a minute here, Sue? Okay. Just because there's a motion made, we need to address a motion that's
Okay.
been made.
Okay,
And again, David, you're much more versed in public meetings and all of this, but I ran all these scenarios through the powers that be, and it was felt that the agenda item was listed in a way that the commission could make any direction they wanted to on the item.
I don't mean to say that we can't make a motion. I just don't think that we can make a motion that makes it sound like we're retracting the prior motion. I am not an attorney, and I don't know that we have a municipal attorney available to us. But I think that we have to be a little careful about how we make that motion. And try to say that we probably shouldn't use something like retract, but you know, you could make suggestions to the council that might differ from what the motion made 2 weeks ago was.
So can I withdraw my motion? Can I withdraw that?
yes, you may.
Say it again.
You may withdraw.
The other option would be is to allow it to fail for lack of a second.
I'd rather withdraw it, Matt, actually.
So with the language of a motion, Dave, you're saying when we wouldn't be able to do a full retraction of our previous motion, but we could make a motion could we make a motion something like amending a previous recommendation?
That sounds better to me. Again, I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I think that you can make a motion that amends what we had before and gives further direction to the city council.
We're gonna make that motion?
I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud here. I'm just.
Oh, no.
All right. Do you have a motion?
Do I?
Does anybody have a motion for to how to proceed?
I thought Jim wanted to reconstruct his motion.
Okay, Jim, would you like to reconstruct that?
If I understood correctly, yes. I'd make a motion that we, no, I'm sorry, I can't make the motion because I don't know how to articulate it.
What if you just amended the motion to recommend accepting the fees in lieu of the dedication?
David, talk to me about that. Is that something that would be able to be done at this time?
Yeah, I didn't anticipate this. Sorry. I mean, hey, this is a group thing, and if the group wants to make a motion, I mean, as Nick said, whatever we say or don't say here is just something that goes to the city council. The city council is the one that gets themselves in potential hot water for doing something, you know, that's not quite kosher. Nothing we do here is going to be a huge issue that someone's going to come back and yell at us because we didn't do a proper reconsideration. I guess I would be okay as long as you didn't say something like retract or reconsider the motion.
Okay. Then I am going to make a motion that we refer to the city council an amended, that we wish to amend the, sorry, can somebody help me out? I don't know quite how to
Make
word
a
it.
motion to amend our previous recommendation of dedication of land. I think that's where you're going. You'd like to amend the previous recommendation, and we'd like to recommend that the park developer gives fees in lieu of dedication.
Just what Nick said.
Okay,
Was that a motion from you, Nick?
sure, I'll make that motion.
Ask it. I'm sorry, folks.
It's okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Do we have any further discussion on the motion?
And Sue, I apologize for cutting you off. I'd be happy to answer your question.
Well, we discussed in the past, the state restrictions on fees in lieu. And I don't know I wonder if that would apply to what we're talking about now.
The state law and the developer's bill is going to apply to this and any other development project that pays park fees. So we have to live by those rules, and we're going to work within them.
Okay. So we can work within the state laws as far as a general large park that includes activities for children and adults, as you know,
Absolutely.
baseball activities or field activities, as well as playgrounds.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to agenda item number 2, agreement with GRG Playscapes for construction of the Market Street Playground.
Just to explain, this is broken into two, one showing the labor and then the other the supply of materials, as recommended by city attorney.
Okay. All right, any discussion on agenda item number 2? Agreement with on the agreement? All right, we'll accept a motion to accept the agreement.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the agreement. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now award of the quote for the materials for the Market Street Playground. Any discussion on this item? All right, I'll accept a motion to accept the quote.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, David will make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, 2 seconds. Do we have any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Off to agenda item number 4, award of street tree pruning contract to Boley Tree and Landscape. Accept the motion to award the contract.
I'll make that motion as well.
David makes that motion as well. All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Joan seconds. All right, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Discussion, agenda item number 5, discussion on parking rules in city parks.
So I'm asking you to make a referral here to L&O. We have a parking lot at Parisi that is being inundated with high school students for reasons I understand. But I also, having dealt with this in a previous community where we had a number of parks near the university, and having dealt with citizen complaints about no parking spaces being available in city parks, I'm sensitive to the issue to our park users. On top of it, we have a lingering issue of a basketball court that doubles as a parking lot, that we have an accommodation request for ADA compliance. And I can only imagine the reason that an ADA stall has never been placed in that lot is because it would go in the basketball court. And the minute we put a sign in last week, of course, I had a phone call, rightfully so, concerned about the basketball court. And so I just want to share with you, I'm asking you to make this referral to license and ordinance to discuss this. I'm also preparing you that I'm going to be bringing a proposal to develop a standalone basketball court within Parisi Park. Hopefully completed before summer, before school's out next year, so that we give that park and the people that live over there a quality basketball court that isn't in a parking lot. And that long-term, we hope to redo the shelter there and hopefully make a more sensible parking lot adjacent to that shelter. So happy to answer any questions or clarify anything, but this is a mess that I'm saying we need to address and deal with. And the high school parking is a short-term thing, but at the same point, we don't really have anything restricting. There's nothing in any of our ordinances restricting anything about the parking lots within city parks. So.
How was that addressed in other cities?
We placed signs that said parking lot use for park users only. And then there were ordinances supporting that. I'd have to go back and look at the exact language to see what the ordinance said, and what the penalty was. But
it just occurred to me that maybe a time limit might be as to consider as well. But yeah,
you run into issues with events at a park, and if you rent out a park shelter at Lakeview Park and are there for 8 hours, there are things to consider.
So I'm the high schooler who jumps out of my car, stomps on the park, and goes to school, comes back, stomps on the parkland, and says, "I was a user."
And yes, high school students would do that. Sorry, Sarah, not to call you out, but I deal with them every day.
Well, and so part of this is, I think, is it a concern for parks, and is it something we want license and ordinance to take a look at? Because they're the party that writes the language that, I'm assuming that if they do want to look at this, that they'd, devise something and send it back our way for comment or review. So
I certainly think that they ought to take a look at it, and I wish them luck in devising a proper ordinance.
And also just making sure that the enforcement is such that it would definitely discourage kids from parking there.
Yeah.
Because, and how do you, my only other concern is, like, how do you differentiate between a car that's parked there for park use and a car that's parked there for high school use? Because you do mention, like, it is near enough to some of the trails that somebody might park there and go use the trail system, for a few hours. That's my only concern. But I think that's something that license and ordinance would have to kind of iron out as they're crafting an ordinance.
And I know that's happening. That's where I've fielded some of these phone calls from, is people want to go walk on the Creek Corridor Trail, and the one individual has a disability and there's no place to park. And it is we're probably making a bigger deal out of something that isn't going to be an issue once the high school construction concludes. But I do know that there is a concern about, loss of parking and more students. And I'm not saying that it's going to go away, and I don't have anything against the high school or high school students, but when people are calling me complaining that, our parks aren't available, or they don't have the ability to use them the way they want, that leaves me concerned.
Sarah, this is a question for you. Do you know if the high school in a normal year, which I know we haven't had one in a long time,
Yeah.
are there enough parking spaces for all the students who want to park on campus to park there?
Well, not really. A lot of people actually park across university as well.
Okay.
And a lot of people get their license after it's available to get parking passes, and they have trouble figuring out what to do then. So they just park anywhere they can find.
Okay. That's what I didn't know how big the student parking was over there exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Bigger than East High.
Yeah.
Bigger than West is more important. All right. All right. I'd be willing to accept a motion to refer this to LNO.
Kathy's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, I'm the chair of LNO, and before this goes to LNO, I do have some questions. How many parking spots are you talking about in Parisi Park? Is this for all parks in Middleton or just Parisi or all parks?
And I think those are really good questions, Kathy, and we probably need to talk about this a little bit more. And the challenge that I have is we get calls from people wanting to park their RV for 2 nights in a city parking lot. And I believe there's a restriction in overnight parking, and that I do have the ability to grant that. If someone makes the request, I can do that. I typically don't. But we really don't have anything in the ordinances about our parking lots. And I don't know if that's a concern or an issue for the commission. The Parisi lot has never been striped, or, well, let me rephrase that. It's not currently striped. I can't tell you if it was ever striped previously. And I think it comes back to that any time an effort has been made to make it a parking lot, this basketball issue shows up and people are concerned about the loss of the basketball court. And so I've told people that are concerned about this issue that I am going to do everything I have the ability to do to try and make a basketball court within the park, separate from the parking lot, a reality. So it removes that issue, and then we can address the issue of how do we deal with this parking lot. And there's a bigger issue right now going on, and the creek corridor is separate from Pleasant Branch Conservancy. But we've got people parking on both sides of streets along High Road for access to the Conservancy, the loss of common ground, and some other factors. There's just not enough parking for users of the Conservancy. And so I think pressure on a place like Parisi Park, where you can access the creek corridor, can access the Conservancy, may become a bigger issue. And I don't know if commission members have other specific issues about any of our parking lots or parking areas. But I guess those are my 2 cents on it.
Well, my concern is if not knowing how many parking lots spots you're talking about, would it be appropriate that you just sign 3 saying reserved for park use and because there aren't any games when school's in session, there aren't any games going on at Parisi Park where you need extra parking. Are you talking 20, 25 parking spots, 30?
I don't think there isn't that many. If it was striped, I don't think you could get more than 20 parking stalls.
Right. It seems, I don't think you would get 20 people parking there to use the Conservancy. So
Correct.
if there were 3 or 4 or 5 or something, or for a couple, if you restrict the time limit, so you don't have kids parking, well, they would be there from morning till whatever, so that there's a turnover. But you're not going to have somebody coming in and enforcing that, I don't think. So I don't know how you want to handle it. Just my 2 cents worth, just for clarification. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we refer this over to LNO and have them work with city staff to try to devise an appropriate ordinance that covers parking in the parks and having it be appropriate users, whether that's Parisi or others as well.
Okay, we have a motion to a second.
Well, I'll second that motion. This is Jim.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none.
If it's just for a point of clarification, I think with the motion, it would make sense for myself to work with Jeremy Geisler, who's the staff that was chair or staff on LNO, and work with him or others at the police department to maybe come up with something that makes sense and take that to LNO.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. On to agenda item number 6, award of the quote to City Albert for appraisal of the land off of Parmenter Street. Do we have a motion to, sorry, any discussion on this before we accept motions? Okay, I will accept a motion for the wording of the quote.
I will move that we obtain 2 quotes for the appraisal.
I've obtained,
Yeah.
just to clarify here, I've obtained 2 quotes.
Okay,
Mr. Albert is the low quote and asking for award to him.
okay.
We're awarding the
Yeah.
Oh, we're awarding it to
contract to
Mr. Albert.
have it appraised.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what Sue meant, right?
Yes.
All right, so Sue's motion is to award the quote to Tenny Albert,
And I'll second that.
and David has a second. Okay. Any other further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, and that is our last agenda item, so I will accept a motion to adjourn tonight.
I can just say one quick thing, Nick, I'm sorry I wasn't able to articulate the earlier motion. I appreciate you stepping in and doing that.
Yep, not a problem.
And I'll move that we adjourn.
All right, Jim moves it, we adjourn. Second.
I'll second.
All right, Sue second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Okay.